Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the ADHD Women's Wellbeing Wisdom. It's a Sunday episode, and I wanted to share with you a conversation that I had quite a while back with Ryan Ridgway. He is a motivational speaker, trainer, and a member of Hummingbird. Now, he talks in this episode about his partner's ADHD and also how that affected his relationship and how he supported her. And he also opens up about his own mental health struggles and how he helps other people now that he is able to have processed his own struggles and his own challenges with his mental health. And I really felt that this conversation was very helpful because he was able to see his partner's ADHD and understand it and be compassionate and forgiving and support her. And I know that back when it was first released, lots of people shared this with their partners and they found it very helpful as well. So here is my conversation with Ryan Ridgway. I mean, going back to your partner, and I know that's what you came here to talk about, because I do think this conversation will be really helpful for anyone that's listening we're living with a person with ADHD. How's it affected you? How did it affect your relationship, your dynamics? And what's the diagnosis brought now after you've had that realization?
I think it would have affected our relationship a lot more if I didn't work in the world I worked in, because I almost fight and campaign against judgment, against stigma. So whereas she'd been labelled a lot in the past, if I didn't have the awareness that I've got, then it would be easy to fall into some of that frustration. But things like the impulsivity, I mean, we make a joke out of it. I don't know if we've got a child-free weekend if I'm going to end up on a boat to France or sat in front of the TV. And I struggle with that because with OCD, I don't like change. It's the overwhelm, it's the stress, it's the inability to focus on one task. These things in a family home with two kids. And Jane's amazing. She's got a business, she's got two kids, she's done so well up to the age of 35. But it affects me more seeing her in distress, when she has those kind of periods of complete overwhelm and tears and that self-labeling and self-judging. From a personal perspective, I'm the one that will kind of get up early and I've got good sleep regulation, good emotional regulation, but we kind of balance each other out. I'm happy to get up early. I've got OCD. One of my superpowers is I am ultra organized, ultra meticulously planned out. So that's where we balance. But it's more affected me because, see someone you love, you care about, who's having these struggles, and, I'll try and help or support, and nothing quite fit, nothing quite worked. When we got the diagnosis, that helped us both lots because there was that period of acceptance for Jamie. And I've had full GDPR sign off and for confidentiality to share her story. So she's happy for me to talk about it. But when she got that diagnosis, suddenly she kind of just freed herself of that guilt and that self-judgment, that self-stigma of, oh wow, there's a reason for this. I'm not lazy, I'm not useless, not all these things that have perhaps been suggested to me and said to me before. There's this kind of release, this weight was lifted, where she was like, I accept this is who I am and that's okay. And I'm like, absolutely, that's okay. Let's work on it together. It can be a superpower. It's not something to be afraid of or ashamed of. It is a part of you and that is absolutely okay.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, she must be so grateful to have someone like you as a partner who is so open to this narrative, to be able to talk about this, who understands this world. And unfortunately, there's so many people out there that, don't have a partner that is open-minded, or perhaps they just shut it down, or they don't believe in ADHD, or everyone's got a little bit of ADHD. We hear this a lot from different people, this sort of invalidation or the abling the situation, where it's just kind of like, oh, everyone deals with that, or everyone loses focus, or everyone, struggles emotionally. And that, once you start opening up a little bit and then someone shuts it down, it's almost like you retract even further back into yourself. So she must be really grateful that you have a level of understanding like that. But also, I know from, you sound a little bit like my husband, because he's not been diagnosed with OCD, but I do think there's a bit there. He's also, an early riser, very routine led, very, very routine led. And his traits, whatever they are very helpful to me because I'm the one that struggles to get up in the morning. He has, I'm not ashamed to admit it, he has every single morning since we've been together brought me a cup of tea, like puts it on the bedside table because he knows that that caffeine is going to get me up. So it's kind of like this intravenous thing, puts it on the thing. He gives me 5 minutes to drink my tea and then I'm like, okay, I can deal with the world.
Makes me laugh so much because that, in me, like the whole kind of 18 months, it sounds a really short period of time, but we fit a lot into that 18 months. I'm the one making the coffee. And I think on occasion I've had to make 3 coffees where they'll go cold. I'll make another one go cold. And she started medication 2 weeks ago. And it was the first time in our relationship. And I was still waking up early, 6 a.m. And I woke up and she's there,
Wow.
awake with a coffee in hand. And I was like, wow, where's this come from? This is different. And she's like, yeah, I just feel so clear-minded. She described it as so alert, but focused, but not kind of like high or like if you've had several cups of caffeine. She just felt really, really present and clear-minded. Different.
So, and you mentioned that she runs a business. I've just been curious, what is it that she does? Because people with ADHD, when they run their businesses, they have to really be passionate about it. And I'm interested to know if it's like a passion-led project.
Absolutely. She's a hairstylist, but they're very much into colour. She's had the first salon for 5 years. They've won awards. She's so creative with it. When she's in that creative space, she's just so passionate. And then we opened a second salon together. So it's great to see her in that world that she just comes into her own. She's in this creative space, so focused, so enjoying what she does. But the other side of running that business was things like the finances, the admin, the emails, and we'd see that build up and overwhelm her. And that's when, it should really be affected in terms of her mental health by what she'd state would be her ADHD. I just can't do the emails. I just can't focus on this or that. And that frustration would come out. And, that's when it was really hard to see because I'd be like, I can help, I can do this, I can do that. But she just wanted to be able to do it herself and have a reason why she couldn't all of her life. So yeah, she's very creative.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it resonates from a personal perspective because I was exactly the same to my husband before I was diagnosed. And I used to sort of come to him and just be like, why can't I do it? Why is everyone else able to do this and that? And why can they cope? And why do they not get overwhelmed? And why do I just want to like shut everything down and just like walk away? And he didn't have the answers, but he would try very kindly to sort of show me what I was good at and, delegate, find someone, get an assistant, do whatever you need to do to help in that matter. And I have to say, I've always been quite good at delegating and seeing where I do need that help, whether it's childcare or bringing in someone to help me clean the house or thankfully in my business, I've got an assistant now who is just amazing at all the techie bitty things. And she's fantastic. She just literally will just pick up something. I'll just, leave her a message and, in 5 minutes it's done. That would have taken me like 3 hours, but the 3 hours it would have taken me, it would have been tears, frustration, self-criticism, beration, anger, emotional dysregulation. And that in itself is just so exhausting, where now I can focus on the stuff that I enjoy and good at. It feels like sort of similar with your partner, that she, obviously she's creative and she thrives off, all the creative side of hairdressing. But to not be able to do what we believe are fundamental things to run a business, but I always sort of like look at it as people who, running in these huge, global empires, they're not doing it all themselves. They've got massive teams, but they're not told, oh, you're not worthy of running that business, or you shouldn't really run that business, even, because they've got a head of marketing and a head of accounting and all of that. But I think our ADHD negative mind that has always struggled has just gone, I talk about something called the DMN, the default mode network. And in ADHD, sort of from a neurological perspective, it's a much louder part of our brain, to which much more prone to self-criticism, and this negative bias where all we do is focus on the stuff that we can't do. So, maybe let her know about that. The DMN is a very, very strong part of our brain. You can kind of remember it's the demon, like the demon side of our brain likes to do all the talking. But actually, when we recognize it, we say, right, no, actually, I'm a shit hot hairdresser. I've got amazing clients. I'm winning awards. And not, oh, I can't quite keep up with my emails. That's when we can start reframing the ADHD.
That's it. And that's where maybe there's some similarities for me and Jamie with the ADHD and OCD, because that part of my brain, that internal dialogue that will condemn and try and mitigate the risk of anything going wrong ever, and look at it this way and that way. And when it does go wrong, it's almost like I've given my brain an impossible task. I've said to my brain, make sure nothing goes wrong in my life ever. Make sure it only ever goes right. So when it does go wrong or not how I expect, Ryan, you're useless. Ryan, why can't you do this? Can't you do that? So there are some kind of crossovers and similarities between us that we can talk about and explore together.
Yeah. So, I mean, moving forwards now, what's her plan now with her ADHD? Is she just happy to stay on the medication? And is she doing anything sort of like holistically where she can, support herself? Because I genuinely believe that medication can be fantastic for many people. But I do think that if we're not supporting ourselves from a lifestyle perspective, because we are prone to overworking, if you'll often spot a workaholic entrepreneur with ADHD. Burnout is much higher. We're prone to overwhelm, anxiety, worry. We also don't have that switch off from literally going, right, you've done enough work today, because there's always more. Our brains are always going, so we could always keep achieving. So I'm wondering, is she identifying with anything sort of lifestyle wise moving forwards?
100%. That's all the stuff we kind of explored before diagnosis and before medication, because that's the realm I work in and teach in. All those wellbeing approaches such as mindfulness, walks in nature, meditation, exercise, good sleep, all of that stuff we tried to put in place, and she'd love it and embrace it for a little bit. But then she describes it as, I know I want and need to do that. I just can't. I just cannot, for whatever reason, connect the dots. So I believe the journey of recovery is much more than just getting good at taking tablets, whether it's mental illness or, OCD, ADHD. So now she's on the medication, she's able to enjoy and embrace all that stuff. So it's a whole journey of, if you want to label it as recovery, that's going to adapt and evolve, and we'll kind of reflect on that as it takes its twists and turns. But yeah, absolutely. Now all the wellbeing approaches that she tried to do before, or maybe done for a little bit, she's now fully moving into that space. And she's going to look at some coaching as well, from a woman with ADHD, because I think that relatability would be really good for us. So we're seeking that out and constantly looking to add things into that mental health toolkit. What else could help? What else is needed now, rather than that's the route, that's what I'm going to stay on. And maybe that'll work for a bit, maybe it won't, maybe it'll change, maybe it'll stop. Same with my OCD. I can't just go, right, that's my blueprint for happiness, so I'm going to stay like that, because it does. It's evolved, it's changed, it's affected my life in different ways as life goes on and there's different circumstances. So we'll keep seeking out more knowledge, more awareness, mostly from your great podcast, and seeing what else is out there to help her live a full and happy and present, enjoyable life.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like she's living with the right person. Tell me a little bit about what you do for yourself, and I guess what you advocate for when you're speaking to other men with mental health challenges.
Trying to break down the stigma and the judgment, because still men have this inherent feeling or belief that it is weak to talk out, or they can't, or they shouldn't show emotion. But because of my background, I mean, I'm 41, and back in my day, get to say that at the age of 41, sound like my dad. Back in my day, no one talks about mental health. So I've had a bit of a rough journey. I'm that kind of middle generation. But the only tools I had back then was fighting. I'm a former professional cage fighter. I did the door. I'm covered in tattoos. And that was me projecting to the world, I'm not weak, I'm fine, when actually on the inside I was this kind of bullied, scared little boy. So what I try and encourage is, it doesn't matter what you do. cage fighting, boxing, ballet dancing, poetry. If life is going to happen at you and for you, then you need to be able to communicate, talk, and share. And interestingly, it was March 24th last year that I was sectioned under the Mental Health Act for suicidal crisis, and it was Jamie that played an active role in saving my life. So we've got an incredible connection and relationship from that. So for me personally, it's continuing to learn, grow, accept, and try new things. The tools I used back then won't necessarily be effective now. I need to continue to grow and evolve and consider new ideas and strategies to keep my mental illness from having a negative grip on my life, because I'll never be cured of OCD, but I can be in recovery with it where it doesn't affect my life negatively. And I've got a couple of superpowers like being ultra organized. I can live with that.
So I hope you enjoyed listening to this shorter episode of the ADHD Women's Wellbeing podcast. I've called it the ADHD Women's Wellbeing Wisdom because I believe there's so much wisdom in the guests that I have on and their insights. So sometimes we just need that little bit of a reminder, and I hope that has helped you today, and look forward to seeing you back on the brand new episode on Thursday. Have a good rest of your week.